30-year-old Evelyn May Parker carried a deep emotional scar from a Thanksgiving dinner when she was just 8 years old. It all started when she accidentally shattered the family's porcelain apple pie plate. Instead of offering comfort, her father Richard publicly humiliated her, branding her a liar right in front of their extended relatives. The echoing laughter of the adults that day planted a toxic seed in Evelyn's young mind, convincing her she was inherently flawed in her family's eyes. For the next 22 years, she constantly shrank herself, apologizing for simply existing and exhaustingly trying to mold herself into an impossible standard of perfection just to earn a shred of their affection. Regardless of her endless efforts, her parents' loving validation remained an elusive luxury she could never quite reach. 4 years ago, Evelyn's life took a beautiful turn when she crossed paths with 34-year-old Liam Brooks, a grounded architect, at a crowded charity gala in downtown Manhattan. The room was buzzing with socialites when Liam accidentally bumped into her, spilling a splash of red wine all over her expensive silk dress. Instead of the harsh criticism she had been conditioned to expect, she was met with his incredibly flustered and profoundly sincere apology, which actually caused her to laugh comfortably for the first time in 8 years. From that very first night, Evelyn quickly realized that being with Liam meant she no longer had to constantly walk on eggshells or pretend to be. He embraced her true identity with open arms, offering a safe haven where he never judged her scars and always listened to her with unwavering patience. Have you ever been lucky enough to meet someone who gently helped you? Please take a moment to drop a comment down below and share your own healing stories with our community. Fast forward through 18 beautiful months of building a foundation of mutual trust, their love story reached an unforgettable milestone. On a quiet evening inside their cozy, shared apartment in Chicago, he got down on one knee and proposed with his grandmother's heirloom ring. It was not a grandiose spectacle, but rather a simple, intimate, and overwhelmingly emotional moment that finally made Evelyn feel like she was truly worthy of being chosen. The highly anticipated wedding of Evelyn and Liam was officially set for a breathtakingly beautiful Saturday in late October, right in the heart of the vibrant autumn season. However, her parents, Richard and Eleanor, were never truly satisfied with their daughter's choice of a lifelong partner, harboring deep-seated resentments that they barely tried to conceal. Her father constantly belittled Liam, frequently making passive-aggressive remarks about his income and professional status, harshly judging that the architect simply did not measure up to the impossibly strict, elite standards he had envisioned for his family. Meanwhile, her mother mastered the art of two-faced behavior, always maintaining a perfectly polite, charming facade in front of crowds and social circles, only to ruthlessly whisper sarcastic critiques and mock him the very second he turned his back. For a long time, the constant barrage of judgment from the people who were supposed to support her unconditionally felt like a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. Knowing that she could never change their deep-rooted prejudices, Evelyn realized she had to take drastic. She painstakingly learned how to construct an impenetrable steel boundary within her own mind, consciously choosing to completely filter out their toxic negativity and relentless judgment. By actively ignoring their poisonous opinions and refusing to let their bitterness dictate her self-worth, she was finally able to fiercely protect the hard-earned happiness she had built with the man she loved. Exactly 10 days before the beautiful wedding ceremony was finally scheduled to take place, Evelyn's parents executed a completely unthinkable and emotionally devastating plan. Richard and Eleanor unexpectedly drove directly to Liam's busy architectural office in the middle of the afternoon without giving him any prior warning or notice whatsoever. Once they were invited inside and sat down across from him, they maliciously fabricated a horrifying and deeply damaging narrative regarding their own daughter's hidden past. They looked him dead in the eye and coldly told him that when Evelyn was 23 years old, she had secretly gotten pregnant and given birth to a child out in the suburbs. To make this lie even more destructive, they claimed that she had heartlessly signed away her parental rights and abandoned the baby without a single ounce of remorse. Taking the sick manipulation a step further, Eleanor even put on a highly convincing theatrical performance, playing the role of a deeply heartbroken and incredibly concerned mother desperately trying to protect him. She leaned across his desk and urgently warned Liam not to let himself get trapped by Evelyn's supposed deceit, begging him not to blindly become her very next innocent victim. Their ultimate goal in orchestrating this elaborate web of lies was to plant a massive seed of extreme doubt and completely shatter their daughter's upcoming marriage before the altar. They were absolutely convinced that no decent man could ever be forgiving enough to accept a woman who harbored such a cruel, unforgivable, and deeply heartless personal history. When Liam called her later that afternoon to gently ask about her parents' shocking visit, Evelyn felt her entire world collapse as the dark, deeply buried memories from when she was 23 came rushing back. During that incredibly traumatic year of her life, she had unfortunately been involved with Trent Harrison, an older man who hid a highly toxic and deeply manipulative personality behind a charming facade, which ultimately resulted in a completely unexpected and terrifyingly unplanned pregnancy. Instead of offering any form of comfort or support, Trent relentlessly pressured and emotionally threatened her on a daily basis to get rid of the baby, intentionally isolating her from the outside world until she was entirely consumed by an overwhelming sense of panic and utter loneliness. Tragically, her devastating physical and emotional ordeal culminated at exactly 20 weeks when she suffered a spontaneous, uncontrollable, and utterly heartbreaking miscarriage while lying in a cold, sterile room at a local hospital in New Jersey. The horrifying, undeniable truth of the matter was that there was absolutely no live birth and definitely no abandoned child whatsoever, making her parents' carefully calculated lies to her fiancé all the more incredibly wicked and intentionally cruel. Both of her parents knew this deeply painful reality perfectly well, completely aware of the agonizing grief she had silently carried for all those years, because it was her mother, Eleanor herself, who had frantically driven a bleeding, terrified Evelyn to the hospital emergency room on That very same evening, Evelyn bravely drove straight back to their apartment and poured her heart out to Liam, finally revealing the entire devastating truth about the tragic miscarriage, the emotionally abusive nightmare she endured with Trent, and the agonizing pain she had kept buried deep inside for so many years. Instead of reacting with anger over being kept in the dark or questioning the validity of her painful story, Liam simply reached out to hold her trembling hands tightly, looking her straight in the eyes as he softly told her how incredibly sorry he was that she had to go through such a horrific ordeal all by herself. His beautifully unconditional and profoundly steadfast love in that intensely vulnerable moment was exactly what she needed, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was truly the extraordinary man who absolutely deserved to hold her heart for the rest of her life. However, despite his reassuring embrace, the highly toxic and deeply malicious seed of doubt that her parents had intentionally planted was still lingering heavily in the room, creating a suffocating and entirely invisible tension that threatened to cast a dark shadow over the sacred bond they had worked so hard to build. Sitting there in the quiet aftermath of her emotional confession, Evelyn suddenly realized with absolute clarity that Liam's gentle comfort alone would never be enough to permanently erase this deep-rooted trauma, knowing deep down that she finally had to boldly confront her parents head-on and firmly resolve this cycle of emotional abuse once and for all if she ever wanted. The highly anticipated rehearsal dinner, meant to be a joyous celebration of their upcoming union, was hosted in the private dining room of an incredibly elegant, upscale restaurant located right in the bustling heart of downtown. The stunning venue had been flawlessly transformed into a breathtakingly romantic space, intricately decorated with soft, flickering amber candlelight and gorgeous, overflowing floral arrangements featuring Evelyn's favorite lush white hydrangeas. Despite the horrific betrayal they had orchestrated just days prior, Richard and Eleanor confidently arrived at the gathering draped in expensive clothing, fully embodying the polished socialite persona they valued above all else. They spent the entire evening working the room, plastering warm, picture-perfect smiles on their faces and charming the guests as though they hadn't just tried to destroy their own daughter's future. Watching her parents effortlessly perform this sickeningly hypocritical charade made Evelyn feel entirely suffocated, her chest tightening with an overwhelming mix of suppressed anger and profound sorrow that she struggled to hide. However, feeling completely emotionally drained from the relentless trauma of the past 2 weeks, she chose to remain painfully silent, quietly praying that the agonizing evening would pass by peacefully without any dramatic incidents. Throughout the stifling event, Liam remained a steadfast anchor right by her side, his protective gaze constantly finding her across the crowded room to offer a silent promise of unwavering strength and solidarity. Meanwhile, the rest of the joyful attendees happily clinked their champagne glasses and offered enthusiastic toasts, remaining completely oblivious to the destructive emotional storm that was secretly brewing just beneath the surface. The suffocating tension hanging heavily over the rehearsal dinner was abruptly shattered at exactly 8:15 in the evening. The heavy doors of the private dining room suddenly swung open, revealing the unexpected arrival of Sarah Hayes, Evelyn's absolute closest friend from over 7 years ago. During the darkest chapter of Evelyn's life, Sarah was the fiercely loyal confidant who bravely stayed by her hospital bedside throughout the agonizing trauma of the miscarriage. However, in the painful aftermath of that devastating loss, the two women had quietly drifted apart, mutually distancing themselves because neither wanted to constantly reopen such a heartbreaking wound. Completely ignoring the bewildered whispers and judgmental stares from the elegantly dressed guests scattered across the room, Sarah marched directly toward Evelyn with an unwavering sense of purpose. Her face was set in an incredibly serious, fiercely determined expression that immediately signaled this sudden interruption was not just a casual, friendly reunion. Foregoing any polite small talk or empty social pleasantries, she firmly pressed a thick, sealed brown manila envelope directly into Evelyn's trembling hands. Looking straight into Evelyn's eyes, Sarah urgently stated in a hushed but firm voice that the critical contents of this package absolutely could not wait another minute. Feeling a sudden chill run down her spine, Evelyn quickly guided her long-lost friend out into the quiet, dimly lit corridor, away from the prying eyes of the party. As she stared down at the heavy paper, Evelyn's deep-seated intuition screamed that whatever devastating secrets were hidden inside this envelope were about to completely change the entire trajectory of her life forever. With trembling hands, Evelyn slowly pulled out the heavily stamped official medical documents from that sterile New Jersey hospital, and the crisp paperwork clearly and undeniably confirmed the heartbreaking reality of her devastating miscarriage at exactly 20 weeks. However, what lay hidden just beneath those clinical records was something far more horrifying and deeply sinister, as she uncovered a thick stack of brightly printed screenshots revealing a chilling text message exchange between her mother Eleanor and her deeply toxic ex-boyfriend Trent Harrison. The undeniable digital evidence showed Eleanor relentlessly messaging Trent on multiple occasions, desperately trying to pressure and manipulate him into fully corroborating her sickening lie that Evelyn had actually given birth and selfishly placed the child up for a closed adoption. Her mother's ultimate and fiercely calculated goal was to use this fabricated narrative to completely destroy Evelyn's character in Liam's eyes, hoping to ruthlessly tear the loving couple apart right before they could ever walk down the aisle. Even a man as notoriously manipulative as Trent found himself deeply disturbed and thoroughly creeped out by the sheer cruelty of her own mother's malicious scheme, prompting him to feel incredibly uneasy and immediately reach out to Sarah to urgently warn her about the impending sabotage. Realizing the absolute catastrophic danger her dear friend was facing, Sarah did not hesitate for a single second, immediately jumping into her car and driving relentlessly for 4 exhausting hours straight from Michigan all the way to Chicago, just to fiercely protect Evelyn with the undeniable truth before she could ever stand at that altar. Holding the ironclad evidence, 22 years of endurance and humiliation completely vanished from Evelyn's shoulders. She bravely marched into the dining room, standing under the amber lights to loudly expose her parents' cruel conspiracy to both families. She firmly demanded that Richard and Eleanor leave the restaurant immediately, officially drawing a hard boundary against their emotional abuse. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Liam's mother stood up and applauded first, sparking a wave of enthusiastic support and roaring applause from everyone present. The Saturday wedding was incredibly warm and intimate, marking Evelyn's true rebirth surrounded only by people who genuinely cherished and loved her. If this powerful story touched your heart, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more authentic family dramas.